Welcome back into Vault Vibes with Nick Cashone.
Julie Abel.
We always do that. Um, Thanks for coming on with us. This is episode number 5, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
We've gotten a ton of feedback from the last couple episodes for us, and we really appreciate all the feedback we've gotten. I wanted to talk a little bit at the top here about our guest last week, John Muir. I had a ton of people come and say they watched it.
Awesome.
A ton of people, commenting on the posts and things like that, sharing stories about John. There was one man, he shared a story underneath our video on YouTube about
Oh, that's right.
John helping
Mhm.
him get custody of his children. They were in a really, really rough situation,
Yeah.
and they call John, his guardian angel, basically, and
Mhm.
that's really, really a testament to who John is.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that when we started this podcast is we wanted to showcase people that we knew in our lives and share those types of things. And boy, are we batting 1,000.
Yeah. I
You
agree.
know,
And so far so good. And I think that I think that the next guest that we have coming on is going to be one of those. I don't know
I
for
think
sure.
so
I mean,
too.
I know of him. I know what he is capable of doing, and I understand that we're gonna have somebody really of amazing reputation
Yeah.
coming on soon. So.
Yeah, no, Mark Amendola is going to be our guest today.
Mhm.
He's someone that I've known for a while. I'm kind of part family of him now. By
Mhm.
knowing his family and spending time with his daughter and son-in-law and their kids, with my kids.
That's awesome.
And when I was talking to him about this podcast, he was like, it was a no-brainer to come on. He
He's
really
he's
wanted
been
to.
on other
He
podcasts.
has.
That's
He has.
crazy.
He may be the first that we've had that's been. He's almost like a
Seasoned professional.
professional
Yeah, yeah.
podcaster.
Well,
So
that
we'll
makes me
see
feel
what
good.
he.
He said
Yeah,
that he says he likes what we're doing,
he
so
can.
that makes me feel super
He
good.
does.
Yeah.
He watches all of them, and he watches. He makes time to watch us. He said in between one with Will Arnett and Joe Rogan and stuff.
That's
So if
cool.
he makes time to watch us, then you should make time to watch us too.
Oh
And
boy,
let
the
me talk to
shoulds.
the camera,
Here
right?
comes the shoulds.
Right.
Here
So,
comes the shoulds.
thank you so much for watching. Everything so far, and we really do like. I've gotten feedback. People, I think last night, someone that said that she said, "Bring me into the vault." I don't know if you even
Yeah.
saw that. So
Nice.
we'll get her in the vault as well.
Great.
And we have people planned out. I have people. We're talking about
I know we have a
into
few months out.
July,
So
August, and stuff like that. So
and what I'm excited about is this guy Mark Amendola. He's going to be talking about his affiliation with mental health in Erie, PA, and he's one of the forerunners. He's been in it for a long time. I'm not sure exactly how long. We'll ask him,
right,
but he's the CEO of Perseus House.
yeah,
And I know that has been a successful place that right now we need all the help we can get
we
in
do
in that capacity in this city. So, and I think that's a running theme all across the country right now. So I
absolutely.
think this is a pertinent show that we're going to be doing, and I'm excited to talk to him about all of it.
Very
And
excited.
in the fact that he's local,
He is
So
local,
yeah.
and that's I think one of our running themes is obviously we want to help people, with their daily life and in business, but mental health is a huge proponent and
Hmm.
something that both of us truly truly believe
Yeah.
in. And so we want to be there to let people know about
Hmm.
some of the things that are out there to
Hmm.
help their kids, themselves, family members, friends, things like that.
Hmm.
Both people that have, we take mental health very seriously. After the break, we're going to welcome Mark Amendola in with us, and we look forward to seeing what he has to share. Definitely looking forward to having him on the show.
Excellent. Good choice, Nick. Thank you.
All right, we'll
All
see you
right.
after the break. Welcome back into the vault with Nick Cashone and Julie Abel here. We're welcoming in our guest for this week. We have Mark Amendola in with us today. Mark, he has a lot of accolades. He has a long list. I think when Julie we were taking some notes, and I think she got onto the third or fourth page there for
We're
you,
like,
Mark.
we're like, that's enough, Mark.
Yeah, so we
That's
said
too much.
we had him come in here, and we were about
Enough
45
about
minutes
you.
right,
Enough about you.
in before we even came into the vault. I know him personally through his daughter. My son is good friends with his grandson, and we've kind of become, almost part of their family over the years. We come to all the birthday parties and everything and stuff like that. So, so we know Mark from that. And when we started this podcast, I was talking to him a few weeks ago, and he said, "Oh, that's right up my alley. That's something I'd love to do."
Love to. Yep. Thank you. Thank you
So we're really happy to have you here, and we want to jump right in and talk about you're a very interesting man. There's a lot going on there.
I'm just what I'm excited about is that you have been in mental health for 44 years.
Yeah, for a long time.
You've spearheaded much of what we now have as mental health in our community. My mother was a therapist for burnt out priests and nuns, believe it or not.
Okay.
And before that, she was in family crisis.
Gotcha.
So she did deal with crisis, and she did deal with students in a certain capacity. So 44 years is a long time.
It is. I'm 65. I'm getting old. I mean, but I don't feel like that. Okay, I don't feel like that.
No.
Yeah, absolutely.
But okay, so you started out as a coach, really. Okay.
Yeah.
You went to college.
I'm born and raised
Yeah.
in Pennsylvania.
That's awesome.
Grew up on the Lower East Side. Went to schools on the Lower East Side. Ended up in Harbor Creek. Graduated from Canyon Prep. No longer around. It was on 38th Street private school.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Lock Haven. Went to Gannon for my undergraduate. Went to Case Western for my graduate. Got an MSW. Got licensed in 1989 and started to practice. The focus originally was kids and families, because that's where I've been, that's where my wheelhouse was. Right. But as I started developing the practice, I started seeing adults. I started seeing adults with anxiety, depression. I started doing couples therapy. So that grew it. Now, I'm semi-retired, still busy. So now I do a lot of professional assessment. And so I still have my practice, and I'm still seeing people. And but mostly assessment, and then make a referral to where is the best next place.
That was amazing. I mean, and while you're talking, I'm thinking of more questions. So if I get to the point where I'm inundating you,
which one ask me?
But you said that you were appointed or voted or nominated for the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, of which you were on this committee sharing a place I guess you were making decisions on where grant money would go.
Yes.
With people like judges, DAs, and attorneys, and here you are, advocating like Erie, PA.
For sure.
I want to hear this.
Yeah, Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency funds corrections for youth, for adult corrections, for different categories, violence prevention, mental health, school safety. So there's many areas. And then that committee, which you're right, it was a governor-appointed position, but that committee then approves all that money. Wow. So that committee looks at all the grants, looks at everything that comes recommended to that committee. And then, and like I said, it's schools, it's agencies, it's community-based, it could be adult corrections. So, and the nice thing is that there's probably 22 members on that committee. Mm-hmm. There's only a couple of providers. Even though I'm working kind of semi-retired, like I said, I'm still representing Percy's House in that capacity. As a provider, and there's only a couple providers on that committee. So I get to, ask good questions, I think, and add whatever it is I need to add as part of that. Because they do want to make sure that where that money's going, that those schools and agencies not only are going to be able to use it, but then sustain it.
Okay.
That's critical, right? To be able to keep doing that.
So let's move backwards, because that's huge. That is ginormous. Like that. And I'm going to ask you a few questions about that real quick. I'm sorry, but I'm excited. But so you started out as a coach.
Yes.
You started out coaching.
Yeah, I did. I was at Iroquois. I was 24 years old. Dave Ross, who has passed away, went to Lawrence Park, played at Florida State with Dave Collins, if you know Dave Collins.
Representing Lawrence Park.
And,
oh my God. So
you're a
vampire also.
I don't sleep well, if that's what you're asking me. And so and then I ended up coaching there at Iroquois. I was at Iroquois, then I became the head coach. Mm-hmm. And then I had an illness, and I had to quit a little bit. I had to step back a little bit. I did that, and I'm fine. Mm-hmm. And then I stayed. At one point, my wife said, "Hey, you're going to be in the gym with somebody else's kids, or are you going to be in the gym with your kids?"
Nice. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right? I mean,
that
you need
makes
that.
sense. That's
you
what
need
people
that in your
have
life,
to do.
Right? So I took a couple years off. Mm-hmm. I knew the head coach at Harbor Creek, He said, "Hey, would you do with the little kids like you did at Iroquois here? Your kids are in first and second grade." And
Yeah.
so I did that. And so I helped him. And then as my kids kind of moved up, they asked me to kind of still help out at those levels.
Mhm.
And here it is, they graduated in 08 and 10. So here it
If
is.
you
20.
can look at that era of your life where you were a coach,
Sure.
because we're going to get into the rest of the story, but you were there and you were teaching these kids how to be team players.
Sure, that's exactly correct.
And so it wasn't just the art of basketball.
Yeah.
You were building a culture of kids on a team.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
To this day, the coach, Ryan Smock, who's a friend of mine, been a head coach, coached volleyball for over 30 years out there. He's also the Harbor Creek volleyball coach. When we start looking at this and how do we treat the kids, we treat them like young men. They are young men, and we
Sure.
expect them to act like young men.
Right.
Now, there are times where they're kids, so things are going to happen. And so we counsel.
Mhm.
We talk to them a certain way. We expect them to act a certain way because they are young men. And I think that's critical. I don't know that every kid in high school has that kind of experience, right?
Right.
No,
So
they don't.
but they know
I can
that's.
tell you they don't.
I know, and I know and so we bring the expectation here. Knowing that sometimes it falls short, but this is always the expectation,
Right.
and they know it, and we articulate it. And so we treat them like young men and
When
who
you
they
raise
are.
the bar, you raise the bar, you would think that human nature wouldn't want to. They would shirk that responsibility, but they rise to
For the
the
most part,
occasion.
you are exactly what you said. You are exactly correct.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's just fundamental.
So you find that like with the kids that you coach, and then they obviously work with the kids with these organizations and all these other things. Is that something that you find that it's kind of like a string all the way through everything, where you kind of approach everything with that same approach, knowing that
Well,
you're looking to sort of provide that sort of understanding to everyone and kind of help them, guide them through all those things?
there is a thread. There is
Mhm.
a theme, and the theme is how do we treat each other.
Mhm.
I mean, kids. Even the kids
That's my
that we.
favorite.
Even the kids that are at Iroquois and Harbor Creek, and I have worked my career mainly with, children and families that have struggled, that have had mental health problems, that have had,
Absolutely.
criminal justice problems, but they're human beings and they're people.
Absolutely.
And they need to be treated that way. And then the hope is what? If you're treated that way, you understand how that feels, then you're going to give it back to somebody, right?
Yeah, you don't just teach people this premise that have money. You're treating
Right.
you're spreading this kind of message in all of the
sure.
the outreach that you do.
For sure.
And that's the thank you, Nick, for having him go into this vein, because
Yeah.
this is what you and I are actually.
We talk about a thread. I think
Yes.
that most of our guests so far, and it's probably just a common thread between you and I.
Yeah.
Obviously, because that's something that we like to talk about.
Well,
and
Mark
things
was
like
asking
that
me
too.
outside
So, yeah.
before we even came in here. Mark was saying, "What is it about? Like, how do you work with Nick?" And I said, "He's the guy who teaches my clients
That's great.
about loans,
Right.
and he does it with a heart, and he does it with humor, and
I see that.
he teaches and he helps, knowing that what his information he's imparting is going to be used in a way that's going to help these people."
On my way over here, I was just meeting a client who's getting an appraisal done, and he's he moved here a few years ago. I met him probably 5 years ago. He couldn't speak any English,
Right.
and now it's like I'm proud of him. I feel like he's like a student of mine or a child. I'm
Right.
proud because he speaks English very fluently now, and he's buying a second home and
That's
everything
great.
like that. And I just met him over here, so it is something that I think that both of us and obviously I think what we find, obviously, as we do these shows is we connect with people who have that similar mindset.
Mhm.
I think really, and
That's great.
and obviously that's some
Yeah.
I
It's a
think
law
people
of attraction.
people
When you-
yeah
when you
people
put
are
that
attracted
out,
to each
people do
other,
this,
obviously.
right.
I mean, there's a reason we became friends with your daughter.
Sure.
I
sure.
mean, she was raised by you, and
That's
she's
kind.
absolutely. I mean, she's one of our favorite people. My
She's
wife
great.
and I.
She's great.
She's really great. We talk about going through like the pandemic. She was one of our pandemic buddies. Like
Yeah.
we hung out. Everyone had their tribes during the pandemic, right?
Right.
And she was
That's
part
good.
of our tribe.
You're part of my pandemic tribe.
Well, let's go back to one something you said, which is that Is it taught? Can you teach it? Okay.
Absolutely.
So we were talking earlier. We have a business. I have a partner, education and treatment alternatives, Dr. Robert Oliver, who was retired as the assistant superintendent in Erie School District. And we have an empathy curriculum. We've written an empathy curriculum. Our buddy Ernie Goldstein from Syracuse University kind of got us going in that way. So we became authors for Research Press. In our empathy curriculum, it's not just how are you going to treat somebody the way you want to be treated. No, it's even a little bit beyond that. How do you think you should be treated? How do you think a human being should be treated?
That is different.
And
it's
that's huge.
It's a little different.
It's like
Yes,
that minor step makes a world
it's
difference.
a huge
I think.
different
Absolutely.
perspective, and it's all about perspective. As you know, I'm a hypnotherapist, and I teach perspective. I help people's lights turn on to perspective. And when you say treat others as though you would want to be treated, that's the golden rule, and that's what that's my biggest thread of but what you said today was mind-blowing, because you're like, don't just treat them how you want to be treated, treat them how you think that you should be treated.
Absolutely. That's the answer.
What is the nuance there? What's the difference between
thinking about it? Truly thinking about it. How do I want to treat it? Well, I don't want you hollering at me. I don't want you cussing at me.
Right.
No. Wait. How do you think you want them to treat you? That's a different way of looking at it. It's a different perspective, like you're talking about. So how do you really want to be treated? Okay,
Right.
Not just the golden rule. In our training, we call it the platinum rule. We actually give it a name. We call it the
No
platinum
way.
rule. Yeah.
So if you could say that there's one difference between the golden rule and the platinum rule, what would it be?
Yeah, we're making you take a stop, right? We're making you take
That next
another
step.
step to really, how do you want to be treated? How do you think they should treat you? And that's another step. That's another. A lot of our curriculums are cognitive behavioral treatment, right? We get into we don't want to change the way. The things that you're thinking are the things that you're thinking.
Because maybe someone's used to being treated a certain
That's what
way.
I was just going to say. How do you work with the people that say, well, I deserve to be treated like crap?
So, great
Right?
question.
I mean, honestly, there
great
are a lot
question.
of people.
So,
yeah.
Our brain works. Our brain is a phenomenal organ, right? I mean, we have all these neurotransmitters that are firing, and even for babies, why they can learn so quickly because they're firing tens of thousands of neurotransmitters.
We talked about that.
Okay, and there's research behind that supports whatever you said. Just like that.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
so when we're thinking about that, we're not trying. We don't want them to change like that thought. It's how they think. It's how they problem solve.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, are you going to think about? Is it all about you, or is it self-awareness? Is it you paying attention to what's going on in your environment?
You're almost looking at it from a different angle. You're almost like taking yourself.
Trying to, which a lot of the kids that we work with even are my children, right? I mean, we've had to work with our kids, right, to be self-aware.
Right.
So it's not something that just happens. Okay.
Yeah.
You got to model it. Your kids got to see it. They got to see it in action. All that stuff, right?
Now, before I get to this thing that you're talking about, because I want to make sure that everyone's crystal clear.
Sure.
You then went on to, after you were a coach, you were a CEO of Percy yourself.
So I'll do this quickly.
Yes.
I read out of school as an intern at Harvard Creek Youth Services. Great experience. They taught me so much about behavioral health and mental health. Worked in various programs there. Went to Hammett, ran a mental health program in Hammett. Okay. And then Hammett was getting out of the behavioral health business. Hammett had a 20-year grant for the building they had on West 2nd Street. And when that money, and they had to keep it there, they had to provide it for the community for 20 years. When that grant gave up, it's where McGee's, where the women's and neuroscience and the heart place. So that was the money, right?
Right.
I could see that this position came open in '94. I looked at it and thought, wow, I know this agency a little bit. I could do this with my eyes closed. I mean, thinking about it, right? Well, I didn't realize at the time what I was walking into that. It's a lot, I mean, at that time there were 30 beds, 36 beds, $900,000, 50 employees. Now, there were at one point there was 100. They reduced it to 90, I believe. There's a charter school with 650 middle and high school kids. There's community-based programs. We do alternative education program. So really, when I went there, it was like, well, what are the needs in the community? So one of the big things was I did not want to replicate what somebody else was doing. If they were doing it, they're doing it, But there were so many gaps in the community. So we partnered with Sarah Reed, Harbor Creek, Sarah Reed Children's Center, Harbor Creek. Just there's safety in numbers, right? We're all experiencing the same problems. How do we solve all those problems? And then we ended up buying 1511 Peachtree, which was the old Erie School District Administration building.
I'm trying to remember where I was when I was there with
that was 19. I'm trying to think. That was 2001. We bought it,
and it was over by Gannon. I believe.
Yeah, we might, at one point it was at Gannon. It was on the Gannon property.
That's where we were.
Yeah,
That's
it was
where I
on the Gannon property at one
And
time.
I just remember how well organized this system was, like, and how you.
We
like,
tried. I mean, we certainly Percy's house has problems. I mean, but for me, the issues we really try to solve them for a permanent solution.
Right.
You know.
And then from there, then that's when we're talking about the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and
Right.
Delinquency.
Right.
And then from there, so I have more pages. Education and treatment alternatives is the business that you run with a partner. And this is training on best practices in mental health. Aggression replacement training
Correct.
is the model you use.
Is the best practice.
So again, education and treatment alternatives is your business, and then aggression replacement training is what you're
The
teaching.
deliverable. Yeah.
And you're teaching schools. Who else are you teaching?
Teachers, psychologists, agencies, behavioral specialists. You mentioned that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Prisons. We Dr. Oliver and I right now have a project. We have there's 4 pilot prisons in Pennsylvania that our ART was originally developed for the reducing recidivism, right? So you go through these 30 hours in 10 weeks, so the frequency and dosage, and then afterwards we would follow them for a year. So we were able then to start, so that's really a deep end intervention, but then we were also be able to develop some prevention things. So now we have, we're developing a preschool 1-2 curriculum. It'll have all of our different components in it and lesson plans for schools.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers will be able to deliver that. There's actually 3 or 4 parts to it, particularly at the elementary level, because, typically with adolescents, it's an hour. No way you're going to do that with 2nd and 3rd grade. You break it down.
Right.
So there's 3 or 4 lessons in one lesson. And then the teachers will have there's 30 lessons, but there's really like 90 lessons.
Mm-hmm.
So they can pick and choose from the lessons based on what the needs of their kids are.
That is amazing.
Are you finding that, and we talk about like the different things in society and everything like that. Are you finding that, obviously you're doing the good work and you're putting in this work to help people. Are you finding that more people are less adjusted and like are you finding in society some of that is lacking?
Yeah. There's a couple of things. Okay, the age of onset of aggression behavior is lowering. Okay. It's going lower.
Oh yeah.
The amount of multi-complex kind of aggressive acts that are happening are increasing. So you have younger kids more violent with the level of acuity of that aggression really high. It's just not a
video
gun.
games.
So let's talk about what the research says on video games.
Right.
Okay?
I just want to because it's always
everyone always says, "Oh, it's video games."
And
I know it's like
they're younger.
it's a
and
mixed
they're gonna
bag.
play things that are like
It's a mixed bag. So
It's
here, it's
really
like
hard.
anything else with your children. Okay,
Yeah.
are you gonna let them play for 6 hours in a row, or are you gonna let them play for 45 minutes and
Right.
get off and go do your homework? Okay. It
Go
really is
outside and
the
play.
parents. It really is the parents' responsibility in my mind. So we can get to some of the core of this, right? It's a parent's responsibility to protect. It's a protected time and place in the human life cycle. Even if you're 17 years old, you're only 17 years old. Okay.
But how many times do you hear that schools are supposed to? They're supposed to be the parents, and they're supposed to make the parameters for mental health, and they're supposed to make the parameters for medical. It's like schools are supposed to teach, and parents are supposed to raise their kids.
Yeah, but if a parent has that kind of mentality, right?
Yes.
If they have that kind of perspective,
Right.
then something's going to have to happen for them to understand that, hey, schools are doing these things, but it's
Right.
your responsibility ultimately to take care of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
100%.
tough. It's tough. I get it. It's tough.
I know there are schools, and even depending on the district, there are a lot of students that are just dropped off. I hear from kids. Your daughter who teaches at a public school in the city,
right,
I hear those stories, or even other districts, and it's like they just expect the teacher to step in and fill in those blanks that maybe they aren't getting at home.
Yeah, but having said that, though, the reality is that's why we're developing the curriculums we're
Yes.
developing, right? Because
Because
teachers
it's not happening.
need tools
Mhm.
to hang on to be able to give to their kids to say, hey,
And we discussed
This is
this in
what's
one
gonna
of
help
the
you.
earlier things, about how the mandates for
Yes.
public schools are becoming bigger and bigger and are not actually, recognized.
Julie
Yeah.
forgets to put her phone on silent before the shows.
Yeah.
We have to.
So, those are the things that you're going to have in this podcast.
so the opportunity is,
Yeah.
the tough part of it is you have more kids getting involved in aggressive acts in schools, right?
Right.
The opportunity is the kids are going to school. They're in school.
Right. They're
So you
there,
have the
right,
opportunity to
exactly.
capture them, right?
Yes.
Now, they want to push back, whatever. They will. But you have them in school. You have them there. Now, the
That's
kid
right.
that's truant that doesn't show up,
Mhm.
that's some kind of family something. I don't know what's going on
There's
there,
something
right?
bigger,
But
right.
someone has to kind of sort that out.
Right.
But these other things, I mean, yeah, they might be getting in fights, but they're in school.
And that's what we were talking about during the pandemic. There are certain schools like Iroquois.
That's what we were going to
that
talk about,
kept-
right?
They kept the kids in school during the pandemic, and the test results are showing that was working.
What have you noticed? And I know I've talked to different people, teachers, and even as a parent myself of kids. My son was in his first grade when 2020 came around,
Right.
and so your grandson, same age,
Yeah.
and I definitely feel like there are some things that they during that time period that's so important to start and kick off your educational career, right? The founding blocks of the math and the reading and stuff like that. What have you found maybe with kids going forward that they've maybe lacked because they didn't have that time?
I'm gonna talk about this as like the consequence of it in terms of what happened. Iroquois kept the school open. As we look back on this, all these schools that got closed down, maybe didn't need to close down the way they did.
Right.
I mean, and then kids are wearing masks. We know, okay, you got to protect yourself. But these little kids, they can't see facial expression of teachers. They can't see facial expressions of their friends. Okay.
Right.
I mean, it was very tough for kids,
Well,
and then the interaction.
Kids are learning from their adults about like nuances and facial expressions. They're not little AI robots. They're really human beings.
Well, and also, we talk about different situations in homes, right? So in a home where the parents are already doing that work and care, those students are going to be okay,
yes,
right?
And
there are the kids who aren't going to get that, where they go to school and they need to fill in those areas that they aren't getting that. Welcome back into the vault. We had a couple. Computer fell asleep here, so we were recording here. Not that we wanted to cut you short, so we brought you back in. We didn't want to kick you out.
No problem.
We still had a few things that we wanted to talk about with you, Mark. I know we wanted to talk about. Julie had a list of a couple other things she wanted to chat with you about.
Well, it's just we touched on it earlier in the conversation, but when you're talking about your business of education and treatment alternatives, and you're teaching the aggression replacement training, you had mentioned that in this program you're teaching people to be treated as though you should be treated, which is the nuance between the golden rule and the platinum rule. So there are 3 things that you're taught in this program, and that is the social skills, the anger control, and the moral reasoning. And so that may give people in this day and age some pause. Like, what do you mean by moral reasoning?
Right.
But I find that to be amazing and truly what we're in need of. But describe that component.
Sure. So aggression replacement training was developed by Dr. Ron Goldstein, 1989, 87, and he was from Syracuse University. And I was running Percy's House, the partner of Education and Treatment Alternatives. Bob Oliver was working in the Erie School District, and we were both looking for an intervention program that would work for our populations. We found Dr. Goldstein's book, went to a training, realized I was using it in my private practice, realized I wasn't using it with Fidelity, asked him to come to Erie. He then trained us, started in 1994.
Nice.
He probably trained over 100 people easily. We would go up and consult with him at Syracuse University. And so he in the summer of 2001, he developed brain cancer, which is ironic for this guy.
Wow.
A week before he passed away, he asked Bob and I to come up and say, "You're the only 2 guys really that I feel I could trust this with."
Wow.
Again, we had developed this relationship with him. He knew what we thought about it and said, "You guys continue doing the research and the training."
Wow.
We were honored, So we've done that.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and then that's why we developed Education and Treatment Alternatives to be able to continue to provide that work. But it does have those 3 components. Social Skills has a series of books. There's an early child, preschool, there's an elementary, there's an adolescent, and there's an autism. And they're all skills, right? In the autism book, there's 70. So there's a cachet of skills to teach, from beginning social skills, listening, starting a conversation, to dealing with a stressful conversation, using self-control.
Wow.
So there's a lot of possibilities out there. We then drill that down based on what the needs of the
That
kids
part
are.
right there, can you just make lots of flyers and just drop them on society? Like just
Right.
just do it flyby
Yeah,
and drop them down
Because
about
let's just say that everyone needs some of this. Let's just in
Like,
general,
literally-
right?
Our kids
I mean,
are growing up. Our kids could use it.
Well,
Right.
Nick and I
But-
keep having guests on that talk about being able to negotiate, being able to communicate,
it's
being
definitely a
able
skill.
to, you know
It's
what I mean? So
definitely
that's
a
just
skill.
Are these and yeah, we talk about that and we drop back to we come back to like, you know, business and daily life and
Yeah.
everything too. So you're thinking that there, you know, obviously there's a proponent of this that could just be used with people just in general.
Daily
Right?
living
I mean,
skills.
even if you're not like diagnosed with
No,
an
no,
aggression
no,
issue or
no.
autism or any of those issues.
Yeah, how did you learn how to perform a particular skill? Someone had to teach you.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah. Mhm.
someone had to show you this is how you got to do it, and let's practice it a little bit.
cool.
That's what the model is. Anger control. We try to teach kids how to understand what externally is happening to them, internally their thoughts that make them angry,
Mhm.
physically what gets them cues physiologically,
Wow.
reducers, bring it down, breathing, counting, imagery, and then get to the point of thinking. We call thinking ahead, and it's all I statements. If I do this, then that.
Mhm.
Knowing that if I start arguing with a teacher, I might get detention, right?
Mhm.
However, if I just rub it in my rub it in my chest. We talk to kids about that,
Mhm.
meaning don't get the last word in. You don't have to get the last word in, by
Right.
the way. Okay.
Mhm.
And so, how do we teach them that, right? And we
Sure.
model it for them. And then the one for me that is in my mind is the thread that pulls it all together is moral reasoning. It has this Judeo-Christian base of there's dilemma discussion. So there's a dilemma, okay? And the dilemma is Mark and Maria have been going out for a year. They're high school kids, and Mark no longer likes Maria, sees Maria coming down the hallway. What does he say something to her? Does he avoid her? You can't decide. So there's typically 6 or 7 questions.
Okay.
And we don't care yes, no, whatever. We care about why they made that choice for that particular decision.
Interesting.
And then the facilitators will challenge that a little bit, right? But then we want the kids to challenge it. So we try to set it up so the kids are a little bit more mature. We'll challenge those lesser kids
Right.
because it seems to have more meaning when it
Yeah.
comes from the kids.
Mhm.
If the kids can't do that from a development point of view, then we do it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so
Yeah.
that gets back to that platinum rule. You know,
Yeah.
how are we going to? Is it really that hard to be kind and nice to everybody?
And I love we again. This is the fabric of most of the religions out there. Like
Right.
when they first start, let's
Yeah,
just say, not
yes.
when it's been tainted and
And all the stuff
marred.
Right.
that goes on.
But like every religion, it feels like starts with how to love one another, and really
You go
let's
back,
just
thousands of years, and this is what humans have been trying to achieve.
And I guess I got to say this
Forever
that we're
and
here.
ever,
You're
right?
Nick? But I got to say this, and
please say
I-
it. Please say it. Preach, brother. Preach.
I'm not anybody special, honestly. Okay.
Oh,
I'm
I would
doing-
say that the proof shows otherwise.
Yeah, I'm doing what Mr. and Miss Amador taught me and my 4 sisters and my brother. Okay.
Sure.
That was them, and so I am proud to sit here and say those guys taught me that. I knew that.
Nice.
They
Right.
taught my grandfather. I mean, we saw our extended family a lot,
Mhm.
and that's missing too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we used to see grandparents highly involved, like me and Lisa,
Absolutely.
in our kids and our
Absolutely.
grandkids'
Yeah.
lives, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Now what we're seeing is more, not always, but grandkids that are raising their grandkids, and
Yeah.
that's not
Mhm.
what the way it's supposed to be,
Right.
right? I get sometimes that has to happen,
Yeah.
but we're seeing more and more of it.
When it
Right.
doesn't have to happen, that's when it's sad.
Doesn't have to happen.
When
But
it's
you're
just-
right.
I agree.
Multi generational. It used to be. I know my mom had. Her grandmother lived at her house
Yeah.
for years, and I. And when I work with a lot of like the newer Americans, people from other countries, they still do that a lot. Where
Sure.
they have multi generations living with them, and I know obviously that's a conversation. That's a whole other conversation. But you're right. I think it's just it's like it takes a village, right? I mean, it's
If we're gonna
it's
do it
every-
right,
it's
if we're gonna do it
everyone
right,
involved.
I mean-
It's not just mom.
But
It's not just dad.
you're one of the blessed people. I mean, they're not all families are functional,
Oh, for sure.
and
That's
not
not
all
right.
families teach good things.
For sure, you're
So,
exactly right,
to
Julie.
me, when you've learned that from your people, that is it's a deep connection
For
to
sure.
to what is good and the golden rule. So that would be optimal if everybody had that
Yeah,
blessing.
right.
So,
But what you're doing
but
is
you're teaching people
exactly.
who don't get
You're
that.
bringing
We're trying.
that.
Trying.
That's amazing.
We are
So,
trying.
You're bringing
yeah.
that to the people that don't have, and otherwise wouldn't have that chance in life, maybe, and would just be kind of forgotten, and that's that's unfair to that person just because of who their parents
And
are.
you started this
you
from
know.
being a coach, all the
You
way
were a
up
I have a
kid.
bachelor. I have a
You were a
bachelor's
kid
degree
when
in
you started
social
this.
work.
a
I
little
ended up.
tiny.
Yeah.
You're a young man. This is the age of my son.
You said you were
and
like
then
20
you-
years
I
old
was
when you
24
got
years
into,
old.
and, yeah.
Well, I was 24 years old when I
Yeah.
started coaching at Iroquois.
Well, there and then
Yeah.
you get to the point where you are running an education and treatment alternatives training. He's teaching aggression and
You're on-
assessment
you're
with
at
a moral reasoning.
state
It's
boards with it's crazy. I mean, so you have, and I know that was something that we talked about too. I think Julie and I talked about. Yeah, you go, I haven't done a lot in my life, or whatever. It's
Nothing
like we look here
special
on the
over here.
outside, and you've done a ton.
Yeah,
And
I
sometimes,
appreciate that.
sometimes
Nick. I do.
look from the outside,
Yeah.
look inside, and see this
One
Mark
last thing.
Amendola through
Before,
the mirror.
I got to say this before
Yeah.
we're done. I mean,
Yeah.
we were talking a little about teaching skills and
Yes.
and we teach empathy. We believe you can teach empathy, but we really focus on the difference between empathy and sympathy, right?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
empathy is all about connecting with each other, right?
Yes.
Even if I didn't experience what you had, I probably can still put my feet in your shoes,
Yeah.
okay?
Right.
Versus sympathy, which is
Oh, you
your
poor
son
kid.
flunked. Your son, but your daughter's graduating. Your daughter's graduating from Yale. Okay,
Mhm,
all right, okay.
mhm.
So empathy is connecting with people. Sympathy disconnects, right?
Yeah.
It disconnects people.
It does.
So, and even though you might not have modeled that, you might not have got that as a child,
Mhm.
Right.
you can still teach it, and we do. It's a
And
curriculum.
that's what you find. That is something that's teachable.
It
too.
is. Now, not everyone's going to get it. I
Yeah.
understand that. There's a lot of parts to this, right?
Right.
But we know that there are young kids that do get it, and we can see a change in their behavior. So if kids can do that, guess what? Adults can do that too.
Yeah. And we
Wow.
talked about the kids thing where they're a little more open. They don't
Yes,
realize
I
when
agree.
they've fallen
It's a
68
little
times.
easier. Yeah.
But they've fallen 68 times before they learn how to walk. They have
Yeah.
not gotten the memo that they can't.
Yeah.
Right.
We as adults, we are the ones who develop the negativity bias. And I would like to say, if adults can, then the kids can.
You are right about that.
So-
We're a product of every single
Yeah.
experience we've had in life, right?
Yeah.
Exactly,
No doubt.
and trying to help those things. That's really. I mean, it sounds so simple when you bring it down.
As we're just
to
talking, it
these
sounds
levels,
simple. It's
right?
not that
But
simple.
it's not.
People
No.
make it really hard, and that judgment. It's hard not to make a judgment, right? How do you understand what's going on with somebody and not make a personal judgment?
But look
about
what
it?
you're doing. Look at what you're doing for this entire community, and Erie appreciates
The way I
your-
look at it, thank you. The way I look at it, I was born and raised here.
Yeah.
I live here. I have a responsibility here,
Yeah.
and that's how I live my life.
That's really
that-
awesome.
It's
thank you.
fantastic
That's
stuff.
really-
That's
And as always,
fantastic
it's
stuff.
good to see you.
Absolutely. No, it's really good to have you. I sense the last couple of guests we have, everyone says, "Oh, I see you all the time," but Julie, it's like it's nice meeting you. So we'll have some people that Julie knows more often.
Wait, what are you talking about? No, I brought in Nick.
I know.
I know.
Jeremy, Nick,
And
just the last two
Jeremy.
we've had, we literally have like that same
And we-
interaction at
it's
the end. It was
hilarious.
like
John-
it was great talking to you. Getting to talk to you, it's a treat. And it's like I see you all the time. I hang out with good people, though. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a sign for all you
That's-
folks
that's
out
how we
there.
know. It's our
Surround
flock.
yourself with people you want to be surrounded
so
with,
funny.
and
Oh
with
my
good
gosh.
things. So, thank you so much for coming.
It's a pleasure.
As again, I don't think we've had a guest yet where we haven't said we'd like you to come back, but we do truly mean it.
I'd love to come back.
and we'd love to have you another time.
Yeah.
And
One more question, real fast, before you leave.
Mm-hmm.
Your walk-up song. What would your walk-up song? be?
Oh man.
yeah,
Come
walk-up
on.
song.
Seriously, if I can pick.
Yeah, you get to pick any
Yeah.
song
I know I'm
you
putting
want.
you on the spot.
That's
This
right.
is-
No,
your song.
Metallica, whiskey, a
Whiskey
go go for Metallica.
Okay, what's
Search
it called?
that. Whiskey, a go go.
A go-go. Okay,
Okay,
awesome.
yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
And then we want to do one other thing. What's your favorite pizza in town?
Oh,
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So Pizza Hut's hand tossed thin crust is pretty good.
nice.
Okay.
My dad's in Harbor Creek has like this thin crust that's
Yes.
really
That
good.
you like.
Mhm.
Yeah, yes,
My
yes,
dad.
yes.
Right
you
down
know.
the street from
My
your
dad's
house. Yeah, yeah.
Not too far from my
What's
In
house.
fact,
on-
I've picked
what's
it up
on
and
it?
we've gone to your pool before.
I'm
yeah.
sure you have.
Yeah.
What's on it?
Yeah, what do you like?
Cheese,
putting on it?
pepperoni, mushroom, no doubt.
All
about it.
right, nice,
Perfect.
Yeah.
nice.
Alrighty.
That's really cool. Well,
Okay.
thanks again. We'll have you
been a pleasure.
next time.
Thank you.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Thanks.
Bye bye.
All right, welcome back to the vault. We had Mark Amendola on. He was a really great guest. He was cool. Julie's corrupting me, making me drink beer. I don't normally drink beer, but he was.
You need friends like me.
I do, and that's what we do here. We asked him what song. Did you look up the song yet that we were
Hold on a
talking
second.
about with him?
Yeah, hold on a second. Oh shit! It's really
Was
only
it
been
whiskey?
whiskey. He said whiskey and a go-go or something, and I think
I think he means whiskey in a jar.
I think that's the case.
Because they go like whiskey in a jarro.
So let's see.
Takes me 2 sips of a beer to start singing out
This
loud.
is like, I think actually Mark Amendola is the guy who got us in this frame of mind. I think it's his.
He was. I think we just kind of were in this relaxed.
That's the one right there.
Keep it short. We can't make money off of Metallica. Remember, they're the ones that took Napster offline years ago. Lars Ulrich, he's gonna hammer down on us.
You might have to cut that part out.
I might have to.
If it wasn't for Mark saying whiskey, then we wouldn't be trying to drink.
We wouldn't
beer.
see. It was suggestive selling.
It was Mark's fault.
It was Mark's fault. Mark was really that was something.
Oh my
gosh. And Mark's the kind of guy that and I was telling you, I've known Mark for probably 5 or 6 years, and he's really a salt of the earth guy. And like I said, I've been welcome into their home numerous times and stuff like that. But there are a lot of things about Mark that you kind of you start peeling the surface on there, and holy crap!
That's what I thought was interesting. You had said you've known him. He's like your tribe. You hang out with them and the kids and his daughter, and it's almost like we got a legend. 44 years in mental health. He's laid groundwork for our community, and that's
he
awesome.
has and it's just huge, and it's just that the ever-present theme of just loving people and giving people chances, and I mean it's just mind-blowing, honestly.
I did not expect that. It's like a John Muir experience. So far every human that we've had in here has exceeded any expectations. I had ideas of what we'd talk about with a community, socially, culturally, whatever. And then they get to this point where all of them have brought it right back down to, I don't want to even say this, but loving one another is just the thing that they're all saying.
Everybody love everybody.
It's just loving one
another. It's so true though. And and I think that and
we're not doing anything preachy. We're seriously talking about real estate. We're talking about hypnotherapy. We're talking about, mental health and education, and all
I didn't know our podcast is maybe we should rename it to Love Vibes.
Yes.
Right?
Vault
Love Vault. No, we don't want to give people the wrong idea. Love in the vault.
Remember the hour? No.
7 minutes in the vault.
I do not. I do not subscribe to that.
No,
that's ridiculous.
We don't mean that kind of love.
But the point is, that this is where it keeps steering its own self.
It does.
A mind of its own. It's very cool.
It is really cool, and I think keep the people coming. And I think it's taught us that we've known every person that we've brought on.
Yes.
But and some of them we've known a long time. Mm-hmm. Jeremy, I've known the better part of 15, 16 years. John Muir, I've known for almost 14 years. I've known Mark for 5 or 6 years. You've known Nick for a while. I mean, and you've known most of these people too. I think Mark was the first one that you didn't know.
Mark, I knew because I worked at Perseus' house.
Well, we didn't even get into that. He said his mom was good friends with your mom back in the day. I know. Stuff like that. So it's crazy. Yeah. I think your families, and I think we've learned, and we talk about this a lot too.
Plus his Iroquois connection. I do remember.
It's feel like you know him.
Yes, he was the coach that came after Len Lombardo. Len Lombardo was in the 80s, and then Mark came right after that. So
I think what we've learned is that a lot of people, regardless of who they are, you kind of Erie's a vortex, and I feel like everyone knows everyone after a while.
Yeah.
You sort of peel those. I mean, when I met my wife, it was like we found out that our grandfathers played basketball in high school together,
Mhm.
and you know,
Were they related?
uh, no, it was just another Italian
Small
man who
town,
married a German woman,
small town
but it
stuff
was
going
but
on
it
here.
is it's a vortex. You know, you say like, oh, I'm doing this podcast with Julie Abel, and he's like, oh yeah, I know I
Yeah,
know them, I
yeah,
know the Luces,
yep.
I knew I knew Dennis and I knew
Mhm.
Wanda and everyone, and it's just crazy
Yep.
that that's just how
Dad
this
was,
town is.
yep. Dad was still teaching when Mark was coaching, so it's
Yeah,
very cool. And honestly, Erie's not that small. We always talk about how small Erie is, but honestly, Erie is actually the fourth largest city in Pennsylvania.
it
So
used to be the third,
yeah,
which
I
bums
know.
me out. We're not
Yeah, I
there
think
anymore.
Allentown's got us.
Allentown, and they keep growing for
It's
some reason.
weird.
What's in Allentown? I don't know. We just lost all our listeners in Allentown, if we had any.
Well, no,
They're
Billy
like screw
Joel
you.
living in Allentown. Billy Joel, remember that song?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Allentown. So, but okay. Well, I think that went really super well. I'm
It
so
did go
excited.
very well.
All right. Thank you so
All
much,
right. We have some more
everybody.
people on the way the
Yep.
next couple weeks here. Got
Yep.
some things up our sleeves,
Yep.
and
See,
that's why
here comes
I
the.
I
I got
wore
a beer bottle out
I
on
wore
my sleeve.
3/4 sleeves today. Look at that.
I want to pay homage to the
Yeah.
home. This is Erie home.
Home.
Yeah.
Let's say like Pittsburgh going home.
Yeah, I sort of could hear a little bit of a Pittsburgh.
You know what? He did have like
Yeah.
a twin, but he said he was Erie
Mhm.
born and raised. So I don't know if maybe his family
Mhm.
is from there or whatever.
Yeah,
There are, we get into accents
we
another
do.
time.
Yeah,
Accents
the
another
accents.
time. We'll yeah, we're recording after hours.
You're
This is
tired.
a later night recording. So thanks all for coming in with us again. We really do appreciate every single one of you, and we look forward to sharing more and more of this with you as we go forward.
Yay. Bye.